welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, and on today's episode we are in the London flagship store talking all things Heir with Sabaa Tahir.
Hi, hello, thank you for having me.
So excited you could make it. It's been a crazy whirlwind tour you've been on.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun.
How was Comic-Con?
Comic-Con was great. I actually enjoyed it. I know that a lot of people probably feel like London Comic-Con is crazy, but I feel like after having gone to San Diego Comic-Con, I really liked how fan-focused London Comic-Con was. Like, I love that there were like building areas and there were gaming areas and card playing areas, and it felt very like, and the artist alley was huge. That's one of my favorite places at any Comic-Con, so I loved it. I had a really good time.
It is very, I haven't been to many other Comic-Cons, but yeah, there is something about the London one where you feel like you find creators.
Yes,
so,
yeah, that was really special.
Very, very good. I heard how hectic San Diego was as well, because we're sister companies with Titan Books and Titan Comics. They're obviously out there doing their thing, and they almost missed the flight home. So it's like eight of them would have had to buy tickets. So yeah, I'm glad
it's intense. Yeah, it's an intense experience. I do feel like if you're a comics or media of any kind fan, fantasy, sci-fi media fan, you should go once.
Yes,
at least, because it is something to see. It's it is a spectacle.
So, what can you tell us about your brand new book?
So, Heir is an young adult fantasy. It is about an orphan, an outcast, and a race. And the orphan is out for vengeance. The outcast is out for herself. And the prince is trying to save his outlaw. They are all linked together by a killer who is wreaking havoc on their lives. It has magic and mayhem and murder, and lots of M's, and romance and family legacy and a fake engagement, which is one of my favorite tropes, and just it also is like a lot of social commentary of sort of what's happening in the world. So it is all of my favorite things about fantasy, but it's a book.
What was it like to revisit kind of the world of Ember? Like, did you feel like you were kind of coming close?
Yeah, I mean, this is a I would call it like someone gave it a great word the other day, and I'm forgetting what it was, but it's like a kind of a companion type novel, I remember it was successor, like a successor novel.
Okay, I like that.
And I loved coming back into the world. It really felt a lot like, it's a successor to An Ember in the Ashes, when he was the first series. And I loved coming back to the world. I loved seeing some characters again. I loved seeing how they'd grown up, and the type of people they became after everything I put them through, which was a lot. So it was really nice. And I had just written a young adult contemporary, which takes place in the modern world in the deserts of California. And I was like, done with contemporary. I'm like, give me fantasy, take me back. Like, no more contemporary for me.
Fair. I feel that way sometimes when I read contemporary. I'm just like, I'm missing some magic here.
Yes.
Like,
I always find myself inserting magic in contemporary books, and I'm like, this would be a great place for insert magical system here. So I feel that.
So talking about kind of revisiting the characters, so obviously some of the characters we last saw them, as quite literal babes in arms.
Yep.
How did you kind of come up with the development of those characters? Like, did you already have it clear in your mind kind of where they were going to be, what was happening, or did it kind of develop?
It developed. The good thing about being a somewhat obsessive writer is that I do have all my characters' lives. And so I knew some of the bigger characters from the last series who do appear in this series. I knew where they would be in their lives at this point, which made it easier because it's like, okay, these are fixed events, right? And I'm building around them. The character who we did meet in An Ember in the Ashes is named Quill.
Yes.
You guys know him in An Ember as the baby Zacharias. He is the heir to the throne. And I decided on him because I found the idea of his character to be really interesting, and I found myself wondering what would happen to him. So I was kind of like, what's it going to be like to be raised by this specific empress, and what's it going to be like for him to have the family legacy he has? And once I had started asking those questions, I was like, oh, I can actually answer these at book. So that's when I started writing, and getting these ideas down. And then it just kind of, it does what good ideas do, which is that it just like spawned so many other ideas that it was really more about like narrowing and figuring out like, okay, what do I want his story to be? Rather than really hunting down his story. It was like I had to like prune.
You could have almost, I don't know, maybe ended up, separate books on each character, because as you're reading, there's just so much kind of like, oh, this happened, and then what happened to them, and how do they know this person? So I can imagine, do you find even, so many books later, do you find editing an easy thing to do, or is it still tricky to kind of like...
Yeah, editing is always tricky, but I do love it. It is my favorite part of the writing process, because you have something to work with. You have a shape. It's like, it's not, instead of being just a lump of clay, it's like, oh, it's shaped like a cat or whatever, then you can just, you get it there. I do find editing to be soothing as well, because I'm like, okay, I can fix this. Again, my personality, which is, it has to be perfect, is not suited to drafting. Because when I draft, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever written, and the worst thing that exists in the world. So it is a process I enjoy.
And talking, like, again on the characters, I just love them all for different reasons. So we have, obviously, Quill, who, in my head, so I'm a bit of a gamer, I kind of equated him almost to, say, a character like the start of an epic quest, like the lead in a Fire Emblem game, or someone who doesn't quite understand the importance of their role. But then we have kind of, I suppose, other characters who are kind of maybe at different points of their journey. So just thinking of the character of Ice, and just I suppose the idea of having power, and then kind of slowly watching that kind of chip away slightly.
Change something.
Change something.
That was the theme that I really wanted to look at in this book. I wanted to look at this idea of what happens when you don't have power. You are the most powerless person. And the things that you want are fair. The things that you're fighting for are just. But then you get a lot of power. What does that do to your cause, to your mind, to your friends, your relationships? Like, that's something I've been wanting to actually explore since the Ember series, and I've never gotten to do it in as extensive as I got to do with IUs in this book. It was really, really fascinating. And took many drafts to get it right. many drafts. Because I think I did start with a very sort of generic vision of it, and then slowly I started really thinking more deeply about how to make it feel authentic. And to make it so, as she is the right? So that was Ice. That was getting to know her. And you said something really interesting. You said you sort of love the characters who don't know their own importance in a broader story. So actually in this one, I think what I found fun was that Quill does know his own importance, but he doesn't want to. Right? He's like rejecting it. He's like, that's not a thing I want to deal with. Whereas the other two characters they do not know how important they are to the story, and they're kind of just fighting their way forward and realizing as time goes on, like, oh, maybe I can alter more of the world than I realized.
Yes, and especially kind of at the start of the book, she doesn't really have a grasp of the magic, so you couldn't picture where she goes.
Like she's absolutely terrible at that. I was like, how would I handle magic? I'm like, I'd probably be really bad at it. And so, she doesn't have that sort of natural, she picks it up and she's great at it. I mean, she's really, really bad at it, and ultimately she needs help. And the question is, what does that cost? Right.
So I always find it quite interesting as to kind of who was your favourite character to write, and did it change as the book progressed? So
I feel like favorite characters when you're a writer is like being a favorite child. I always tell my kids my favorite child is our cat, because I'm like, she's everyone's favorite child. Like it's it's a fair thing to say. With the book, I feel like I have different reasons to love each character. So I loved writing ideas because she was a challenge. She made me think really hard. She made me rewrite. She made me dig for who she was as a character. And then I really liked writing Quill because he's so internal, and he sees, and like he might be really upset, but he's just going to, and I really relate to that, right? And so I found him really fascinating because how do you take an internal character and still make them into somebody who we get to know better, and who we want to follow on his journey? And then you see the moments where he is more outspoken, and you see that he's a good leader, and he is a caring person, and he is like a wonderful guy, right? But it takes time for us to get to know him. And then Saoirse was just a ton of fun. I knew who she was like the moment I heard her say in my head, is there anything more disgusting than the feeling of wet slime? And I was like, that's my girl, right? Like, and I love how snarky she is. I love that she's very grumpy. I love that she doesn't like human connection. Like, I totally relate to Saoirse. I like that she's kind of a goblin, and she's a little bit like, and then she meets this person who's out. She's like, okay, maybe you're not totally terrible, but that ends up getting her into a lot of trouble. Yay.
And we have to obviously mention that that slow burn relationship was everything.
Oh, I'm so happy you enjoyed it. I enjoyed that too. It was, I was very much thinking, when I think about the Embers series, which is a very slow burn, right? We're talking 4 books of slow burn. With this one, I was like, I think I want to go just a little bit faster. So, which a lot of folks who read the book are like, thanks for that. So I'm happy you enjoyed it.
I suppose, especially considering this is going to be a duology as well, you still want a slow burn, but you're just like, well, it's 2 books, right?
Yeah, so we gotta get there eventually. Yeah. And then, we take it away.
Yeah.
It's what's gonna happen. We know that. We knew that. Yes. That's how it goes. Yeah.
It can't end like happily ever after.
It can't be. Yeah. Not yet. Anyway.
Not yet. So in all 3 books, I think there's always kind of the important idea of representation of your characters and how everyone kind of feels very real to you. So kind of even things like the use of language and kind of spotting kind of Hindu like Urdu words and things in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How important is that in?
Oh, I don't think I would know how to write any other way, right? So sometimes people ask if I put brown characters in my books on purpose, and it's like, well, yes, but that presents the question of what's your default, because this is mine.
Yes,
my default is that there are brown people everywhere because there are, and that there are different languages and cultures and that mythologies and legends in this world because there are in the world, right? And to me, that makes for a richer, more interesting world. I do have what I think of as like, hugs to people who are who speak maybe Hindu or Punjabi or Hindi, people who have a background that might be either Muslim or if not Muslim or African, Middle Eastern, South Asian. Words, traditions, customs that they'll recognize, and that's just me saying, this is a hug for you, and a way to say we've not been in books for too long, and so this is one of your stories.
Absolutely, and I can't wait. Like my niece is Hindi, and I can't wait. She's only 10 right now, but I can't wait until a few years time where
she speaks Hindi.
She does speak some Hindi.
Okay.
So she on her mother's side, so her mom is teaching.
Oh, lovely. Okay,
which is really lovely to see.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's just great that there'll be a whole world of books like.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, I'm gonna be like. Every birthday.
There you go. We got a book for you.
So, what I found quite interesting as well, and I think this applies to all your books, but definitely to is that even though it's kind of under a YA imprint, there is something that feels like it spans over the genres. Like someone who reads adult fantasy enjoy it just as much. And even like my partner, who is a adult fantasy author, was reading a bit of it over my shoulder, and he's just like, oh, I might read that after you. So, it is good. Like, is that kind of something that you're kind of aware of, like that you're potentially you could kind of be shelved in multiple areas, like your appeal is.
I think it's really wonderful. I mean, I've written books that are definitely more firmly in the young adult space, like All My Rage, which is like Afraid book, is I would say more firmly in like teen adult.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Ember series always trended so upper YA, right? It was never sort of a younger young adult book. It was more like 14, 15 stuff, right? Because there's a lot of complicated themes, there are a lot of complicated relationships, there's a lot of violence, and there's a lot of sort of callbacks to history. And so because of that, I feel like I understand why I have that sort of broader audience.
Yeah.
And Heir is an extension of that to some degree. My characters are older.
Yes.
So in all of my books, they're not like 15 or 16 or 17. Leia started as 17, she ends up in her 20s at the end of the series. But in this book, everyone is, 19 or 20 or older. There's a few side characters who are like 18, but for the most part, I prefer to write just slightly older than like a teenager and more like an actual like young adult, I guess. Someone in their early 20s, just coming into kind of the warm up in a bigger way, I guess. And so I do feel like because of that, it does have that slight range. I have a lot of, I have tons of readers who are surprising things to say about that. I've had an 80-year-old person come to one of my events and say, I know I'm not your usual target audience, but I love your books, and then I've had an 11-year-old come, and I was like, are you reading this? And he's like, yes, I loved it. So it just depends. I am so proud of the fact that it has that broader to get things done.
And obviously touching there upon the kind of really big themes that it obviously covers, and a very kind of adult kind of themes of the world of genocide, of poverty,
refugees, child soldiers. I mean, you name it.
It's kind of, it must be a tricky thing to kind of cover such big topics and still kind of keep some light, some hope in there. So how do you manage to kind of balance those very weighty topics with?
Well, I worked in journalism for many years before I started writing books. I was a copyist at the Washington Post, and I worked on the international stuff. So when I was working there, it was these stories about things like child soldiers and extrajudicial jailings and genocides and wars and bombings and occupations. It was all these things that I was reading about, that I was thinking about as I was writing. And I think part of me was attempting to process those things. I feel very hurt by those things, very let down by the world, like I'm sure many people do. And in order to, I think, process that, I was trying to write a story in which these things happen, but a normal person could change that. A normal person could change the outcome of these terrible, terrible things. It could make the world better. Because I needed hope as a young person. I needed it as an adult. And I think that's true for everybody. And so the way that I keep hope in the books is by always giving these characters a way to change from it, so that they don't feel, they don't feel unimportant. They don't feel too marginalized. They feel like they can actually make a difference. And sometimes they're able to, but sometimes they're not, because that's also right.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But ultimately, these books are, for anyone who's like looking for like, something that is very extremely realistic and reflects our world perfectly, like this is more helpful. It is, and I have found even readers who don't necessarily usually gravitate toward that have found that through them this book, because they feel like it's helpful, but they wouldn't pay for it. Pay for it as you're reading, So you're clinging on to the side of the cliff, being like, please don't kill me.
So coming up to our last couple of questions. So I was doing obviously a bit of kind of reading up on your background, and we are mutual friends with the lovely Owen Hampton.
Yes.
So
yes.
And she was kind of saying, "Oh, you both like super rock music and stuff."
Yeah.
I was just like, "I know, I'll give it." for your playlist,
Yeah.
is it still kind of heavy? Is there a heavy rock element?
I have my playlist.
Okay.
I will tell you some of the songs.
We're gonna judge you.
It's totally fine. I listen to lots of things. I listen to country, I listen to rap, I listen to a lot of indie rock. I'd say more indie rock than like
Okay.
rock.
Yeah.
I listen to like oldies. People will say I listen to everything, but they don't really. I listen to bluegrass, like whatever.
Wow.
I'll listen to it. I don't always like all of it, but I do listen to it. So obviously, Chuckle Brown.
Oh my god, yes.
Of course. Let me find the playlist here. It's here. It's the very bottom. Oops, I hold it. Okay, so I have Zola Jesus. I have Sabaa, I have Soundgarden. I have Chris Cornell, Rufus Du Sol. I have Nine Inch Nails, of course. Matt Mason, maybe 3. Sam Fender, The Lumineers, Florence. Alanis Morissette, a really old song.
Such a mix.
Yeah, it's a mix. Ani DiFranco, The Temper Trap, Saint Motel, The Vaccines, Mondo Cosmo, some Pakistani music, After George Ezra, Tilburg, Odessa. I can keep going.
Wow, I just love that. I know it was earlier this year. We had Jay Christoph on, and we were talking about like he's super into quite heavy music, and I mentioned a few bands, and he was like, "God, you're old," and I'm just like, "It's the same age." I was like, "Okay," but yeah, there is something about maybe that scene of like kind of 80s, 90s grunge and stuff that is timeless.
I feel like if you're a true lover of music, you never judge other people. If you really love music and you actually are dedicated to it and love it the way that I am very judgy, the way one should, then you don't judge other people. Like whatever they listen to, you're like, do you love it?
Yeah, you do.
Cool. Yeah. Like I think that there's so much incredible music out there. I could never limit myself to one genre, right? And I don't know if you know the feeling when like there's a genre where you don't normally listen to, and maybe you have a friend who's listening to it, or it just like pops up on your your Spotify or your Apple Music. It's just like, whoa, I've been missing out, right? Oh man, like that's so great.
Because up until like maybe 6 months ago, I hadn't really heard of Chapel Roan, and then someone else mentioned Chapel Roan.
Yeah,
so okay, I'll listen to it, and I felt like I'd been like the earth.
I mean, for a lot of people, right? Like I remember listening to her stuff a while ago and being like, "This is so good. I wonder why she's not that popular." It was maybe like a year and a half. And that was she was on my playlist and I listened to her, and that was that. And then slowly this whole thing started. I was like, yes. It reminds me of like when Arcade Fire wasn't popular, and then they suddenly became like for a little while they were like really huge, and it's just like such a cool thing to see when like an artist you love like blows up, and it's like yes, like
I was there.
It's like when a book you love becomes suddenly popular, right? Like so, I'm good friends with Adam Silvera, and his book They Both Die at the End. I have loved since 2017 when I read it, and it got big a few years ago, and it was like the coolest thing to see that all these people now also love Rufus and Mateo, like me. It's just like yes, we're in it together.
I just love how kind of impactful a good song, a good book, a good game, whatever it may be, can kind of really smooth you. So it's
a beautiful thing.
It is an absolute beautiful thing. And to kind of finish our interview, so what are you working on next? And what are you currently reading, watching, and if you game, what are you playing?
Okay, so I'm just trying to remember all that. Okay, so what I'm working on next is the sequel to Heir. I did an outline for it, started writing, thought I was really ahead of the game, and then had to scrap everything. Wrong! So probably it's not going to come out next year, sorry. But I promise when it does come out, hopefully it'll be good and you'll be happy that you made it. So that's what I'm currently working on. I am currently reading a book called a book by Ananda Devi. She's a Mauritian writer. She just won the Neustadt Prize. She's a poet and a writer. And I think my brain is British, but I think it's called Eve and All Her Fires. And I just started it like maybe a week ago, and it's like you read a page and you're like, how do you do this? Like how do you write so beautifully? And then in terms of what I'm watching, I just wrapped up this show on Apple called School Person, which is like such a middle-aged show, but I loved and found really entertaining. It takes place in London, so if you're gonna travel to London soon, like it's a good show to watch. But it is like my brother and I were joking. We were like, "This is so targeted at us." It's not even funny. And then playing, I have not played anything in a while, but I actually am excited about the new Assassin's Creed. I think it just got pushed back, but I'm very excited about that. And I just played the last one. I just finished the last one like a couple of months ago. I'm forgetting the name, but it's
the one after that.
the one after that. It's a smaller game. It's not, no. It's a smaller game, and it's like the character is like kind of like a thief, like a sort of jack of all trades, this type, and it was really fun. I had a great time playing. So I'm a big but I've also played Zero. God, I'm sorry, my brain is
Zero.
yeah. And I found that one really fun too. That was a couple of like maybe 6-7 months ago. But I don't get to game as much because I don't let my kids game. Because they're like at an age where I'm like, let's wait till your frontal lobe is a little more developed.
Okay.
And so I don't. I mean, they play sometimes, but like for the most part, like you're in school, like you're in school. But that means that I can't really play. Because it's not really fair for me to be like, you can't play the games. So hopefully when I go to college, then I can have a free for all.
Oh my god, imagine the games.
Imagine the kids so much. I'll like never talk to anyone in my family. I'll just be playing games. Finally, after years of playing.
Yes. Oh my god. Yes. Yeah. There may be a delay in any further.
Are you playing anything right now?
So I just started Silent Hill 2 because it's Halloween.
I can't eat. Freak me out.
It's scary. But I'm a huge like JRPG fan.
Okay.
So I've got waiting kind of on the like back burner is Metaphor Refantasio, which is by Atlas.
Okay.
You do the Persona games too. I lived all of those games. I even have those like soundtracks on my like mix of songs. So you'll be in the gym and you're listening to video games.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, at least you know you're gonna be running.
Yeah, you wait. You've got to save the world.
Gotta save the world.
But that's a wonderful game. And then there's the new East game has just come out.
Yeah. Okay, so lots of good stuff. Okay, well, I will get your info from Alwyn so that when I'm ready,
Yes.
you can tell me what you need.
Oh my god, yes. Let's do it. And so thank you so much, Sabaa, for obviously making time to come today towards the end of your call. I hope the rest of the talk goes well. And I think obviously you've met a great time.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a pleasure. You know, sort of fun and just legendary. So I'm very proud to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And there will be signed stock available to order from our website and in all 9 of our stores coming soon. So yeah, check out your local store or our website to grab a signed copy. And we shall see you next time. Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.